What's up, Lantern fans? It's the Emerald Enthusiast, back with another Green Lantern collectible review. This time I'll be looking at the McFarlane Toys DC Superpowers figures of Sinestro and Green Lantern Hal Jordan. The figures are packaged in this retro card and bubble design. Each package has the respective character name in the top right corner, and in the bottom right corner it says McFarlane Toys. We get classic artwork of both Hal Jordan and Sinestro, and each card bears the Superpowers logo. This style of packaging allows you to see the figures and their accessories quite well. If you're an older collector like me, you will certainly appreciate the nostalgic vibe of this packaging. The back of the packages have product shots of both figures and vehicles in the DC Superpowers line, as well as brief biographies of their respective characters. Here are close-ups of each bio. If you would like to read these, just hit pause and do so now. And now let's bust open these packages and see what's inside. Let's have a look at the accessories now. And here we see Sinestro's personal power battery. The handle is pliable, so it's easy to get into the figure's hand. Some collectors might not like the fact that the Sinestro Corps logo is on the top of the battery when Sinestro is wearing his classic costume. However, since Sinestro wasn't in the original line, I'm just glad that he has a figure this time. And here we see Hal Jordan's personal power battery. It's a matte green, and it's based on the appearance of the accessory that came with the original 1984 Superpowers Green Lantern figure. And here we see Sinestro and Hal Jordan free of the packages and ready to rumble. There is a great deal to like about each one of these figures within the framework of them being from a retro line. However, I do have a couple of minor criticisms. So let's take a closer look at the loose details now. Let's have a look at the lower bodies now. And you can see that the tops of the boots are sculpted on the Hal Jordan figure, and I really appreciate that. Both figures have these prominent stamps on the boots, so I am not a fan of those. There's not the greatest amount of sculpting detail on the legs. The musculature is really smooth, and again, that is in keeping with the motif of these being retro figures. Here's a look at Sinestro. Again, I like the tops of his boots, and likewise, I don't like these prominent stamps. I like the color choices on both figures, and the black sections on both costumes are glossier than I thought they would be, so I'm thankful for that as well. One issue that I have with the Sinestro figure is that this belt portion, although it's done well overall, there's this gap in the back, as you can see, and that is somewhat unsightly. But overall, I am pleased with the lower bodies on both of these figures. Let's have a look at the torsos now. And we get these compact, thick torsos, and that's the way that the Superpowers line looked back in the 80s. There's more sculpting on Hal Jordan's back than I thought there would be, so I'm pleased with that. There's some sculpting around the rib cage, and here's a look at the Green Lantern chest symbol. The lines are tight and exact, and I really appreciate that. Now let's have a look at Sinestro. And this type of torso doesn't work quite as well with him. There's only a minimal amount of sculpting on the back, although I do appreciate the paint application. I do dig this sculpted collar. I think that that's a cool detail. So that's a look at the figure torsos. Now let's have a look at the arms. And there's some muscle definition here on Hal Jordan's arms, so I appreciate that. The figures do not have elbow joints. I really would have liked those, even though those were not part of the original Superpowers line. Here's a close-up of Hal's ring, and it is what I expected. It's a mixed bag. It looks like a little green mound on his glove rather than a ring, but at least there is a little bit of sculpting work there. Now let's take a look at Sinestro's arms, and I really like the sculpted gauntlets. Those look really good. He has a gripping hand, and his ring is actually done very well for this type of figure. The figure does have long arms, so that offsets the look of the torso a little. Overall, I'm pleased with McFarlane's work in this area. Before I talk about the head sculpts, I should point out that Sinestro is considerably taller than Hal, and that's how it should be. Now let's get a look at those head sculpts. And this is very similar to the 1984 figure. There's good sculpting on the mask. The hair looks very plastic. There's not a great deal of sculpting there. I am pleasantly surprised by how good Sinestro's head sculpt looks. I appreciate the sculpting on the ears. I like the skin tone. The hair has a slicked back look, and the paint details on the eyebrows and mustache are well done, so I really appreciate McFarlane's effort here. Now let's have a look at articulation, and we do get these single pin knee joints, and they actually work very well. You can get Hal into a running pose. You can get him to kick forward that far. The articulation in the hips is actually very impressive. I wish that we would have gotten hand rotation, but that is not the case. You can get the arms to do a 360 at the shoulder joint. The head moves side to side, but that's the extent of the articulation with the neck joint. As you would expect, Sinestro's articulation is very similar. Neither figure has torso articulation, although you could get Sinestro into a good flying pose, so I appreciate that. The arms do a 360 at the shoulder joints. Once again, the only movement of the head is from side to side. There is no up and down movement or head tilting. As I stated earlier, it's actually pretty easy to get the personal power batteries into the hands of the figures, as you can see here. I would still exercise caution. You don't want to do paint damage. They do fit snugly into the hands, so I do appreciate that. But I really wish that the hands could rotate to give us some more posing options with the personal power batteries. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this review, and please tell all of your friends about this channel. I would certainly appreciate it. And I'll be back with more Green Lantern content soon. But until we meet again, this has been the Emerald Enthusiast, and thanks for watching.